Hey everyone, welcome to the Americana Station podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Today on the podcast we have Mary Scholz, and I'm excited to talk about her new record. I'm going to announce a few things real quick. There's a lot of stuff going on, which is why there's been a pause for a few weeks on the podcast. I'm so sorry about that, but it is good news. First off, I just got back from a tour, which we do talk about on this, so that slowed things down a little bit. Americana Fest, of course, which was wild. Took a lot of pictures there, played a couple of gigs. But one of the big announcements is both of your hosts on Americana Station are going to be playing a show together here at the basement, the OG basement on 8th Avenue on October 21st. Tickets are available at the basement website. And that is, I believe, just thebasement.com, or just search for The Basement Nashville, and you'll be able to find those tickets. They are available for sale now, so make sure you get them. They're only $10, playing at 6 p.m., and Veronica Stanton is opening the show. Super excited about that one. So glad that me and India get to play our first show together. And also, this week, the Amp blog just released the premiere of my song Don't Drink Well Whiskey in Lone Star State. And so you want to make sure that you check that out. You can visit that website at turnuptheamp.com, and you'll see that premiere for Don't Drink Well Whiskey in the Lone Star State. Also, India Ramey just announced that she's going to be emceeing the 10th annual Pearls and Pinstripes Gala on October 7th at the Music City Center. And this is with the Tennessee Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. So please make sure you check that out. The website, or at least the Facebook, is Tennessee Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. And you can get your tickets there for India emceeing that. Super cool. Lots of really good stuff going on, including Mary Scholz's new record. So let's get to that. I hope everyone's doing well. Make sure you rate and review this podcast, and let's get going.
Every year, you lit up. I could hear it. To pick up and feel my voice so near.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Americana Station podcast. Today on the podcast, I have Mary Scholz. Did I say that correctly?
Hi.
Scholz?
Yes, you did. Thank you. Yeah, shoals like muscle shoals.
Scholz, the insert foot pad.
Or I thought it's so funny. I always say Dr. Scholes, but if I'm talking to anybody who's involved in music, they're like, or muscle shoals.
That's true. That makes more. That's way cooler.
But yes, Dr. Scholes, that's my usual go-to.
You have a new, is it an EP or a record that's coming out?
New record,
full length.
Yes, full length on July 22nd. I'm very excited about it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just was jamming on my little run a couple of the tunes that are already out. Oh no, I just had them pulled up.
Talk to Me and Tired Sad.
Tired Sad, that piano one. Yeah, that one is so good.
Thank you.
I also am tired of being sad and sad of being tired.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. It's been a lot, and it continues to be a lot. So I'm not glad that people can relate, but I figure it's fairly relatable.
So what's crazy to me is that you just released an EP like last year, and you're already putting out a full length?
Yes. So the EP that came out in October called Lonesome was originally going to be, some of those songs were originally going to be on this record. Okay. And what happened was, we recorded in fall of 2019, 3 songs that were going to be on like a full length. And then things got delayed for various reasons. Then the pandemic, everything got delayed. And while we were in, dealing with lockdown and doing stuff, I did another song and pulled out so I released Lady Liberty as a single, but we ended up including it on this EP. We basically just took a few things we had done and put them together to release an EP, because it had been a while since I'd released music, and it felt like those things were not going to necessarily work in tandem with anything we made for the full-length record once we were able to get back in the studio.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I was really happy to do it because it was interesting, because Lonesome is such a song that I love so much and that audiences love. And so I didn't want to like not put good attention on it. And when we first decided to just package it as an EP and put it out, on the one hand, I was like, oh, but it really needs lots of attention. And on the other hand, it kind of took the pressure off. Like, okay, we're just going to put this out and see what happens. And it did really well. So that was awesome. That's
great. Yeah. I was going to say, everybody needs to have like a COVID EP.
Yeah.
That and similarly, I put out an EP that I just started like diving into like recording, mixing, mastering, and all that stuff because I had nothing else to do, and I just watched a bunch of like masterclass videos on it and stuff. And I did the same thing. I kind of dug into some old songs, re-released one. I literally pulled all the tracks except for my old vocals and guitars off of an old song that is discontinued. Nice. And then remixed all of that with like a new version of vocals and guitars and stuff like that, and put it on the album from like,
that's awesome.
Like 10 years ago or something like that. So
that's so fun. And you said you did all the mixing and mastering yourself.
Yeah.
That's badass. That's like, it's a whole other art form beyond the music making itself. So that says a lot for you.
It is. Yeah. I did that with this new one too. So it
awesome.
It's a lot to take on though. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone.
Yeah. We do a lot ourselves as artists, I think, across the board. And, I guess there are some things that for me, I'll be like, okay, that's not a thing I'm going to DIY, but there's plenty of other stuff that I do. It's part of the reason why I got to draw a line. There's not enough hours in the day.
Yeah, I know. So what are some of the other things that you do for the art that maybe people don't realize?
Well, I have, either co-directed and or definitely produced and edited a number of my own music videos. So the editing thing, and also I've been doing my own booking for 15 years, and like all of those things, manage social media managing and things like that.
Yeah, a lot of people think that, if you're doing okay, that you just automatically have all those things. They don't realize that each individual thing costs so much money,
So much money. And, like previously I was doing like every little piece of it. And now I do on this record have a team that I'm working with, which is so exciting because it's so nice to have folks that I enjoy and that I trust, and they're able to take on some of this and shoulder some of this work that, like, I can only be so good at all of these other things too, right? I can do some of my own radio promo. I can do some of my own press pitching, but I'm not a publicist and I'm not a radio promoter. And I need to have time to practice and to get, to write the music and things like that. So it's very nice to unload some of it. And I'm like laughing at myself because there's still not enough hours in the day. So I'm like, how was I doing it before when I could not unload any of it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and the thing about like publicists and like radio is like, if you're doing it yourself, you get all of that rejection, if someone else is doing it, they're feeling it and they're not letting you know about the rejection as much, So.
Just when you're like, hey, did you hear back? And they're like, ooh,
Yeah.
We sure
didn't hear about that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did PR on my last record, and it's not as fun to hear all the no's, especially if they don't realize that you're the artist as well.
Oh yeah.
They're like, yeah, no way. And you're like, oh, okay, thanks, guy.
You're like, no way. Oh, no. Okay, great. No way. Yeah, it's plenty to do with the rejections of the booking.
Yeah, right.
Especially right now, everybody is getting back on. I'm just realizing that this window is open. Can you hear those cars driving by? Should I shut that window?
I can't, but I realized that my AC was on, so
it's anybody's guess.
So we don't know.
Funny. I can't hear your AC. So
okay, perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone's getting back on the road right now, And you know how hard that is, just trying to line up, like at a regular time, just trying to line up a cohesive tour that makes sense is a lot of work. And doing it when everyone else is trying to do the same things has been an adventure.
Yeah, it's like the floodgates are opening. I imagine. Are you staying mostly on the West Coast for now?
No, I mean, I have. We're doing a big record release show on July 22nd here in LA, and then I'm doing one in Philly on September 21st, and one in New York on September 22nd.
That's awesome. Where in Philly?
In Philly, I'll be at City Winery.
Cool. Yeah, my friend Veronica Stanton's playing there soon.
Oh, awesome.
I don't know if you know her.
I don't know Veronica.
Okay.
And I've not played at City Winery yet. Philly's my hometown, and this will be my first time playing at City Winery there. So I'm excited about it.
That's exciting. Yeah. Veronica's from Jenkintown or something like that.
Oh, sure. Okay, cool.
We were actually supposed to be doing a tour, and we were going to be playing the World Cafe before the world shut down.
Yeah. World Cafe is great. That's typically where I go when I play in town, is to World Cafe. And, just scheduling is so tricky right now.
Yeah, I bet. So you said around
up.
September you're doing that in Philly. So that kind of makes me think maybe you'll be at Americana Fest.
I sure will.
All right. Did you get a showcase?
I sure didn't.
That's okay. Me either. We'll
commiserate together.
Yeah, we'll commiserate together. Exactly.
That sounds good. Yeah. No, I did not. Not this year. But it doesn't matter. I'll be there. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. It's a great time. I think that's where I met you initially.
It is. Yeah. That's where we met. And that is why I booked those shows in the Northeast for that time, because I figure, I'll come out, do Americana Fest, and then go up to Philly and New York and play those gigs. And I'll also be working on shows for the Northeast after that. So we're looking at having my full band at those shows, which will be awesome. And that's still sort of a work in progress. Yeah. But that would be a big deal, because I've never toured with my band. I have toured with pieces, but primarily solo or duo. And so trying to do that, but then there'll be a bunch of other shows lined up as solo shows or duo shows from there.
What's the full band look like? Is that like drums, bass, guitar?
Yes, drums, upright bass, and electric. You kind of switches back and forth. Electric guitar, pedal steel / dobro / Weisenborn, depending on the tune.
Okay, I'm not
background
that cool.
vocals.
What is Weisenborn?
So Weisenborn is another, if it's another lap, instrument. It's like, when you see like a dobro. Man, I love that I'm tripping all over this description. It feels like the acoustic guitar version of the dobro to me, in that it's like a natural wood instrument. It's on your lap. You play it slide the way you do pedal steel or dobro or whatever, but it's just like a slightly different sound. And it has a very kind of woody and natural tone to it, which I love.
I'm going to Google that after this is over. Weisenborn. Weisenborn. Okay, so is that like the name, kind of like dobro's the name, but it's actually a resonator guitar?
I get confused about that, actually. Let's take a look. Let's just do it right now. I know it's a capital W, so I want to say that it's is probably just the name of it. No.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. That's what I was imagining when you started describing it.
Yeah, it's technically a guitar, but it's lap and it's a slide. Brand of lap slide guitar.
Oh, it's a brand. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a brand. Okay. From Los Angeles. There you go.
Hey, now we both learned something.
Learning and teaching all at the same time. So we got the pedal steel Weisenborn, electric guitar, bass, upright bass, drums.
Upright bass, drums, myself on acoustic guitar and piano, and then like a keys player for like organ and Wurlitzer sounds and things like that.
Wow, yeah.
And then background vocals, one vocalist. So it depends. So like right now, that setup, we'll have that in LA for this show at Hotel Cafe on July 22nd. And so we'll be a 7-piece band. And then my good friend Abby Posner, who's an Americana artist, she's going to sit in with us on a song on banjo. So it'll be a good time.
That's awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a fun time. I would love to be in Los Angeles to hear the full band show, but unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to make that.
Well, hopefully we'll get lots of video from it. And then, dream the dream that'll just be something I'm able to tour with at some point, because that would be amazing.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, that is the dream. It's hard too, because I imagine going to the West Coast is so expensive. So I imagine getting out of the West Coast is pretty expensive as well, especially with a 6-piece band.
Yeah, exactly. It really is. It's tricky, and I've never been able to do it before. So I'm hoping to be able to pull it off this time for at least this, those few release shows, and then we'll see what the future holds.
So when you were writing this record, was this all original Mary Scholz originals, or are there any covers or any co-writes or anything on it?
They're all Mary Scholz originals, and all just me, no co-writes on this one.
Wow, that's awesome. Do y'all do a lot of co-writing in LA?
Yes and no. Sir, I don't think as much as you do in Nashville there. I know, it's funny, when I first moved here, it was definitely something that was more on my radar, and I did much more often than I do nowadays. Mm-hmm. And I think there are lots of people who are doing co-writes all the time. And I myself, it's like a totally different writing experience for me. And the kind of songs that come out of it for me are so different from the ones that I write when I'm by myself. And I think that they're both valuable, So I really do enjoy getting together with somebody and writing with them and learning about them, because it's such a personal process to write a song. But I do a lot on my own.
It's like dancing, you got to have the right partner to really move well together.
It's really true. And you can really know a person and enjoy them, and then not have a groove as a writer with them, which was an odd thing to learn. I remember getting into a writing room, like in New Jersey when I was very young, with somebody who I was like, yeah, this is going to be great. And then it was so awkward and we just couldn't. And I was like, oh, okay. It's like dating. Sometimes you just cannot.
Yeah. Well, and if you don't learn the other person ahead of time too, I think that's important. Like if you want to be a good co-writer, is to listen to some of the other person's material and know. So going in, what's going to work for them if you're writing for them. Typically when I co-write, I'm writing for someone else. I'm not writing for myself, but.
Okay. Are you typically writing for yourself solo?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gotcha.
This record will be all Will Payne originals, except one cover of Songwriter in Town that I really liked. The song, I like all the songwriting. So
awesome.
It fit the thematic style of this record.
Remind me when that record comes out.
Yeah, it's coming out in October.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've been seeing your posts about it. I look forward to hearing it.
Yeah, I'm super pumped about it. But this is about your record, so not mine.
Well, it's all about.
So what is the name of the record? I was trying to find that on the website.
The record is called Begin Again, and I am sorry, I should have sent it to you ahead of time so you could have it. But the record is called Begin Again, and that comes from a song on the record that is called Streetlights. So there's no title track, quote unquote, but it is a lyric from the song Streetlights.
Awesome. Yeah. I was looking at all your photography stuff too. And I know you said you do a lot of directing with the videography and editing and stuff. Do you do some of the photo shoot directing as well? Because it is cohesive and beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad to hear that. It's always interesting because you just never know how things are being received or seen. Mm-hmm. I know what I think I'm seeing and hopefully putting out there. So I appreciate hearing that. I always have an active role with what it's going to look like. And I'm very adamant that it matched the feeling of the music, which is a little bit tricky on this record. So with the Lonesome EP, I shot those photos with my great friend, Eva Gala. She's wonderful. And that was we sort of worked that out together, what it was going to look like, what it was going to feel like. And and we did a little bit of kind of, let's just go find some spaces and that kind of thing. Yeah. Whereas for the California record that came out in 2017, I shot with Alyssa Armstrong. She's amazing also. And that we had a much more like specific vision. I was like, I want to be in nature and I want it to look this way. And she found this spot for us to shoot. And we had a very specific idea of what it would be. So for this record, I worked with Piper Ferguson, who was amazing. And we did like the whole mood board thing and how do we want this to look and that to look. And we kind of came out of it with a lot of different things. So when I went to pick out photos for the record layout and things like that, I was like, oh, shoot, there's too much. I'm not sure now what matches. So it's kind of been fun to play with, though, because the different songs, the record really kind of moves between all these different pieces of my musical interests. So it's an Americana record. But there are a few songs, like the first two songs that came out are not very explicitly Americana sounding. There's a little bit of a pop feel, a little bit of like a funk feel, a little bit of sort of this, for Talk to Me Anyway, and for Tired Sad, it has very sort of like 70s kind of classic mid-tempo ballad feeling to it, all this organ happening.
I got that vibe, like the almost like Laurel Canyon-y kind of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the record really kind of moves between those spaces, and then there's songs like the feature song that we're going to be putting out on the record release day is called Ordinary Morning. And that is like a real sunshine Americana song. It's really captures that sort of classic Americana feeling. But I like that it sort of dips around all these different musical interests I have and doesn't land squarely in one space exactly. And the photos sort of mirror that. We've got a bunch of different looks and spaces that I'm occupying. And I think that represents it well in sort of all of the different emotional fields I'm working with in the song topics as well.
Yeah. Do you think that you were more influenced by like your Philadelphia upbringing and that kind of like folk background, or has LA more, at least for this next record, been more influential, or just kind of just all over the place?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I really, coming up when I was a young musician, I was really influenced by, James Taylor and Joni Mitchell and Carole King and all of those wonderful classic writers. But I was also really influenced by pop music, and I really enjoyed, emo punk and things like that. And you don't really hear that in my music, but that's all part of where I come from. Yeah. So I'm releasing a new emo punk record. But when I came out to California, originally the first record I put out was like a real pop singer-songwriter record, The Girl You Thought You Knew. That was really just sort of in line with the Sarah Bareilles and all that kind of feeling. But as I stepped more into the sounds of things that I really like, I used to say what I want one day is to have a big bluegrass band behind me, but I'm singing something that's not quite a bluegrass, like traditional sound. And that's kind of where we've gone. We've kind of gone into this arena where we have a lot of this classic Americana and bluegrass instrumentation on top of this sort of lyrical pop, folk melodies and songs. And so California, the record I released in 2017 was very much in that folk arena. And this is an extension of that, kind of drawing back a little bit some of the more pop things that we heard in 2014 on The Girl You Thought You Knew. But I was working with Jonathan Wilson on this record. So everything else that I've done, I co-produced with folks. And this time I had Jonathan Wilson on as producer, who was awesome to work with. And he one of the things I love about him and love about his discography of things that he's produced is that there's so many different spaces it's occupied. It's not all the same thing, and it seems to be really fitting to the artists themselves, the sound of each record, which was part of why I wanted to work with him. Because, some folks really put a stamp of like, oh, I can hear that producer on that record.
Right.
And some folks like really kind of guide it to be something very specific to the individual. And so I was very happy to get to do that with him, and really proud of what we came out with at the end of the day.
That's awesome. Yeah, the thing about the bluegrass band that I thought was super interesting is same with me. Like I always was like, I want a bluegrass. Well, I had one for a while too, but I was like, I don't think I'm not. What happened was I really wanted to do the bluegrass stuff, but those were not the songs that resonated with the crowd. And so you just kind of have to go into the direction that is going to, sometimes it's going to make you the most money. And so it's like, okay, I guess I'm doing the honky tonk thing because that's where people want me to be. So that's, kind of, it's funny though, because like I would love to do bluegrass. I'm not a bluegrass musician.
Yeah, and I'm not either. I'm not a bluegrass musician. I don't try to pretend to be or anything like that. I love the instrumentation of it, and I love listening to it. I love like traditional and classic bluegrass musicians. They're so talented, and I'm a big fan of it. But I like being able to sort of bring in what makes me into the mix of what makes that instrumentation really beautiful.
Right. Yeah.
It's been years since you lingered on the line, and we tried. Once you told me that you didn't want to say goodbye.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we took 5. We were talking about going viral because we're both amazingly viral, cool people. Continue, sorry. So you went viral on TikTok.
I went viral on TikTok, and the video was about sexual harassment. And we were just talking about how like crazy and strange of an experience it is when that happens. Because I'd never had anything like that happen before. I have a really lovely, dedicated following on social media, and I hear from people whose names I know now and all that kind of stuff, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. And I love that. This is the first time anything just went nuts. And I think now it has like 6.5 million views on it.
Wow. And
just like thousands of comments and, comments from women that are like, yes, that's exactly my experience. And comments from men that are like, that sucks. And then comments from men that's like, that doesn't happen. And then the arguments that ensues from those kind of things. And just like wild and crazy. And the videos that I put up in response after that, a few of them, also like really big audience of people. And then I started to get like overwhelmed and not responding right away or as much, which of course is when your engagement tanks and you like stop perpetrate, just like making it continue.
Right.
And then it fell off. And that was also that was another type of hard because I was like, oh no, everybody come back. Let's keep talking.
Nobody's meant to be communicative on that level though. Like that's just impossible.
No, it's intense.
Yeah.
It's intense. And you really like, you miss things that come in, there'll be, and then this is true about all social media. I try to stay on top of it. I like to be involved in it because I enjoy interacting with people, right? Like everything that I write about is very personal. And I feel very much called to be on stage and talk about real life stuff and my own journey. And a lot of it has to do with like healing and following your path, etc. Which means that if I'm lucky enough, folks are connecting to that in a really personal way and sharing their stories with me, which is a real honor. And so on social media, like I'd like to be able to keep up with these people who feel connected and we've, engaged in some way at a show or something. And I like to reach new people, but no matter what, like it's just impossible to keep up with all the time. And I miss stuff that comes in. I miss that this person followed me that I should follow back because I've met them personally or I know them and we've established a friendship, but I don't realize they're following me for like a full year. Or someone sends a comment on a video that I missed because something else crazy happened, like this video that went viral. And then I find it months later and I always feel bad because I don't, it's just never the intention to ignore anybody. So I guess this is why I'm saying this right now. If you're on my social media and it seems like I'm ignoring you, it's not on purpose.
Yeah. And like, I don't think I went anywhere near mine was only like, 300,000 views or something like that. But
So crazy.
even that was like intense for me. And it's true because like, I'm there to talk to all these people who want to engage and like have some sort of like longer term, not just like a one-off, like, oh, haha, that was funny, let me share that with my friend, and then I don't know who you are ever again. Like, that's not what I'm on social media for. I'm there for the people to like engage with them, and musicians, fans, friends, anybody in the industry. Like, I'm there to engage with people and like grow together, in an environment where like it's not meaningless. I'm making the best out of social media, and
sure.
Going viral is not the best of social media. But I mean, I guess it's kind of necessary to grow your brand, but
I mean, it's really great in some areas, I hope that there's a good turnover of folks who got interested in what I have to say about being about the female experience, and that might be interested in what I have to say about the human experience in my songs. I do talk about the female experience a lot in my music as well. So I hope that there's a good turnover rate there, but I can't guarantee that. But I felt at least that if it was going to be something that was not related directly to my music, that it was at least related to the part of the messaging or part of like my brand, as you're saying, which is, I've written a lot about the paths, the different paths that women take, and what what's expected of us and all this stuff. But what you're talking about is really, it's like the best use of social media is if you can really personally engage with people. Yeah. At its best, social media is really interesting in that way, and really gives us the opportunity to connect across the distance, so far. You start to get to know people's names, even if you've never met them. I know that there's always, like Lewis, who's in Japan, is going to comment on my posts on Facebook, and like all these things. It's very special, and it's time consuming, and you have to ignore all of the ugly stuff if you can.
Right.
It's a balancing act.
Yeah, it really is. But I do want to talk about the experience that you had in the studio. Did you record your record fully in LA with all your band?
Yes. So we went into the studio this past September of 2021. Sorry, there's a gnat in my face. Okay. In September of 2021, we went into Jonathan Wilson's studio in Topanga Canyon, which was just a beautiful, magical space to make a record. I felt very lucky to get to do that. And we basically had 2 weeks. We had 10 days to make this record. And we went in, we had the whole band there for 5 days. And we just went in and would sit down. We went song by song. I would sit in the control room with everybody with my guitar and play through the song. And I would start out by telling everybody, like, this is the theme of the song, and this is what I want. This is what I want the audience to experience from it. This was the first time I made a record where I didn't do basically any pre-production.
I was just thinking, I was like, so you were kind of writing the parts in the studio.
Yes. As far as the arrangements are concerned, that stuff was happening in the studio. Previously, on all of the records and EPs I've released and singles, I've done pre-production work ahead of time. Some of them are like a lot of them were songs I'd played live with bands or other musicians, and we've kind of worked out how it would go. When we went into the studio for Lonesome, that was something I played live all the time. Yeah. Played it as a guitar duo. We had like that feeling of it down. We had to add in other instruments and stuff like that, but the core of the arrangement was sort of there. And also that was always how I saved extra money, because studio time is so expensive. So I was like, cool, let's get into a rehearsal space. Let's figure out what the arrangements are there. And then when we go in, we can just knock it out. But in this case, a lot of the songs were written during the pandemic. Some of them were old songs that just never made it onto records and therefore never made it into the live show. And they were like just blank canvases, which was terrifying and also very exciting. So we would start the day with me sitting down, either on guitar or piano, talk out the tune, what I want to, what I hope for people to feel when they hear it. And I'd start playing, and I'd either just play through the whole song, and then I'd start playing it again, and people would start to add in, or the first time through, folks would start to jump in, and we'd just sort of start feeling it out. This is how this is going to go. Okay, maybe that's where that comes in. Okay, maybe this is not upright bass. Maybe this is going to be electric bass here. All right, maybe we're not using the Weisenborn. Maybe we're going to, have the. And there's like a ton of bouzouki on this record. Interestingly enough,
okay,
which
I do know what bouzouki is.
It's like a Gaelic. It's like Irish music has bouzouki all over it, and there's nothing Gaelic about my record, but I also love Gaelic music. It was not my idea. Yeah. Ben Peeler, who plays dobro and Weisenborn and pedal steel and mandolin on the record and on my previous EP, he brought it in. He was like, I don't know, I hear it, and it really works. It's all over the record.
It's like a big ass mandolin, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. So there's that's sort of how we came to shape all of the songs. Was just working through it, and Jonathan being like, okay, but what if you throw this in here instead? And we did record everything live together to tape and then process the digital. So we, and then I re-recorded my acoustic guitar and vocal later, then the following week.
What kind of guitar?
But we did everything live together. I'm playing, so on this record I play, I don't know that I play my Taylor much on this record. I have a 1920s Oahu that I'm playing on the record. I have a 1970s Giannini. And then I think that Jonathan had it's a Brazilian guitar.
Oh, okay.
And then Jonathan had a really nice Martin parlor guitar that I played. So depending on what the song, as you know how that works, like how the sound of the guitar changes the sound of the song. So we kind of would test it out, what seemed like the right vibe. But yeah, when I did the California record, we did everything live to tape in one room, and that's just how it came out. That's what we ended up with. In this case, we recorded it to
vocals
tape
too?
Also, but everything that's on the California record is live. I did overdubs on one song on the California record and some harmonies, and otherwise everything was like what we captured is what we captured. So that shit is live. But this record,
love that. I want to experience that one day. Yeah,
it was cool. Awesome. It was cool, and I went into it with Jonathan when we first started talking about the record. I was like, I love that, but I don't want to be limited to whatever we capture vocally.
Yeah.
In the moment. So we did keep like my piano that I played with the band live. And I think that we overdubbed all of my acoustic guitar because there was just a little bit too much bleed or something like that. But the vocals we redid, which was great. I loved that.
Were you playing like an electric piano, or were you playing like an actual
baby grand?
Beautiful.
So baby grand.
Yeah. The tones on the single, oh man, I forgot. Hate.
Talk to Me or Tired Sad?
Tired Sad. I was like,
Tired Sad.
Hate Sad. Tired Sad. The tones on that are great. I'm glad to hear that was a baby grand, because you can get great tones out of electric pianos these days. So
for sure,
totally.
You can
fooled me with that too.
We actually had a very funny experience with the piano that we didn't directly experience, but one of the days we came into the studio and Jonathan was like, oh my God, we had a crazy night last night. I knew we were going to be tracking on this baby grand today. And so I called in, somebody to come in and tune the piano. And I just wanted to make sure, like I'd been tuned last week, but I just want to make sure. Great. Love that. But whoever he usually called in wasn't available. And then he ended up calling somebody else who showed up. And I guess didn't know what they were doing. Like it was somebody who was like a fraud. That just people who say they do A, B, or C so they can get paid and they don't. He was like, it was such a mess. He came in, tinkered around for a while, messed up the tuning, and then left. And I had to find another person, like in the middle of the night, to come back in and retune this baby grand piano so that first thing in the morning we could track, which he did pull off, and it sounded beautiful.
It did.
But he didn't sleep that night.
Yeah,
Poor
no,
guy.
I wouldn't either.
Oh my gosh.
Is piano your first instrument, or is guitar?
It is. I started on piano when I was young. I mean, I'm uncertain at this point whether or not my first instrument was piano or if it was flute, because I played flute for a very long time. I think I started on piano a little bit before that, very inconsistently. My mom she plays piano and organ. She was teaching me for a while. As we all know, it's trickier to learn from your own parents than it is from just somebody you're assigned to as a teacher. So I didn't stick with it as much as I should have, wish I had, not wanted to at the time. But I was playing flute and saxophone, and then I started playing piano more in high school. And that's also when I picked up guitar. And I primarily did that because I didn't want to have to wait around for anybody to accompany me. So for a really long time, I was like, yeah, I play guitar, but, I'm just like a rhythm guitarist or whatever. I just play so I can sing. Sorry, I don't know if you could hear that ringing.
That's okay.
And then at some point, the guitar just became my main instrument and what I loved, and just loved learning it. And how many of them can I own that have different characters? And I just, it was nice to find. I remember being on tour and recognizing one day that, like, oh, you don't just play to sing, you play. And you love to play. And that was like a nice discovery.
I don't think that happened to me until I moved to Nashville, because I kind of had to be better,
Oh, sure.
When you're in a smaller town, you can be mediocre and nobody notices because there's not really a lot of better player. You're already doing fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came here, and that's when I fell more in love with being a good guitar player instead of just half-assing it. But yeah, it took, I was not good for a long time. I wasn't bad. I was just
it's like, it's fine. Yeah. It's fine. And I was mostly self-conscious, oh yeah, I don't really play. I play, but I don't really play,
Right. Yeah. That's how I was.
And then at some point I was like, oh no, I do play though. I remember I was on the record release tour for the Girl You Thought You Knew record. And I had a day off in Ohio, and we went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. And there is a room that is just full of everybody's guitars, and they're beautiful and old and behind glass, and it's legendary. And I remember having just a physical reaction. I gasped, and I was like, oh, I was in awe of these instruments. And that was kind of when I realized how much I love the instrument and the craft of playing, that it wasn't just a vocalist who was playing so that I could sing. Oh no, I'm also. So
you don't have to pay another guitarist.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Or wait around. That was the main thing. Just felt, I just want to sing. I want to be able to sing right now. And pianos are not always at my disposal.
Right.
But a guitar, I can sling that over my back real easy.
Yeah. I think that's kind of how it became such a popular instrument. Is, you could take it out on the road with you, and not every place is going to have a piano or a piano in tune.
Right. And foolishly enough, for years, I used to play this giant guitar. It was a jumbo dreadnought. It is way too big for my body. But I went into a guitar shop at the time when I was looking for it, and they kept bringing me these small guitars, which as a grown person who has all these parlors that I love now, I understand that. But at the time, they were pitching it to me as, girls love these because they're small. And I was so offended. Please don't sell me a guitar because I'm a girl. Please sell me a guitar because it's good.
Right.
And so I asked them for the largest guitar they had. And they gave me this giant dreadnought, and I bought it. And I played it, and I toured with it. It's an Ibanez. Man, I can't even remember what it's broken now. So thankfully, because I actually have shoulder injury issues from playing it. I carted that thing around Europe on my tour. It just obnoxiously sized for my body.
Yeah.
Just to prove a point.
That's funny. I've never played a jumbo, but I did play. I was a bass player for a long time, and I switched to banjo which was dumb because banjo is heavier than bass. And
they are heavy.
Yeah, I thought I was going to get a break, and it was heavier. So, but now most of the time I just play guitar these days. I don't really play too much banjo, so it's a little bit easier on my back.
Yeah, that stuff's hard, and it's a lot to cart around. And I always have a lot of stuff between a couple of guitars and merch and maybe a keyboard if I have the space for it. But I always feel very lucky when I see a drummer show up with their whole kit, or upright bass player putting their instrument in their car. I'm like, it's not so bad. It's fine.
Yeah. I don't understand why we do that to bass players, demand that they play upright bass when electric is so much easier. But
it is so much easier, but it's such a different tone. It's so good. I love it.
So we were kind of talking during that little intermission we had about like just the community of the Americana scene and how you've kind of been in the Philly scene and in the LA scene, and then, immersed at least through Americana Fest and touring here in Nashville, which are some of the bigger Americana scenes, at least to date. Do you see differences in those scenes, or do you not? Is it just kind of all blurred together because, we're all crossing paths all the time?
Oh, that's a great question. I appreciate the community in all those different spaces. And I feel like when I was in the Philly scene, I was more in the singer-songwriter kind of folk world. And I would really love to connect with the Americana scene there, which obviously the folk world is part of that. Then that's what I love about the Americana community, is that it really is this broad spectrum of genres that flow into each other, like what I was talking about, on the record. There's all these different styles that are all part of the same family.
Right.
So what I really appreciated about Americana Fest was feeling this inclusion. And this is something that we're also desperately needing, is the feeling of inclusion and the actual act of inclusion, not just the feeling of it. And so I think that the Americana scene here in LA has been exploding over the past few years. And it's really interesting to watch, and great, very cool to find these nooks and crannies where all these Americana artists are performing that well, we didn't know about this venue, or we didn't know about this Americana night or this bluegrass night. I actually started an Instagram account called Americana LA to try to encourage the community to come together, know about each other's shows, know about the different venues they're playing, and anybody who's a fan of Americana music in LA to be able to land on that and see what's happening in town. I don't have a lot of time to do so it requires that everybody sort of help out and send me your info when you have a show and send me the details and things so I can share it. Because I think we're just so much more powerful all together, considering it a community rather than considering it competition. Oh, this person's sort of in my genre and I've got to wedge them out. I'm so over any version of that in the industry. It's just so unnecessary. Everybody does something a little bit different. And I think that there's space for everybody.
Well, we rise together, that's what I think.
Exactly. And so in Nashville, I have been very lucky to connect with lots of wonderful people and meet people like yourself. And just when people are open and accepting and welcoming, it's just such a beautiful and powerful thing. And so it's something that I hope to continue to be able to do myself, as well as be on the receiving end of, and just build up those communities of artists who are within the genre to support each other.
Yeah, it does seem sometimes like there's such a gap between, East and West Coast, just because, and most of the people I've talked to from LA, it's like, just to get out there is just so expensive and really hard. And then people aren't as interested in booking someone that because it's almost like the Texas thing too, because Texas is like so insular that like everyone's like these huge people in Texas, and then they come over to North Carolina and no one knows who they are. It's kind of like that. Right. And like building that scene is like really helps so that there is more of a, line for everyone to kind of jump to different areas that they might not have a huge scene.
Yeah. even it would be so nice to be able to do that, because I feel it myself, the impulse to be like, where someone is trying to come in and who are you? There's that impulse that's very human. And then there's the other impulse, which is, okay, wonderful. Let's all work together. Wouldn't it be nice if we were all providing a space for other people to come in? I think I mentioned Abby earlier. Abby Posner is a wonderful Americana artist. And if you don't know her, you should. She's awesome. She plays guitar and banjo and mandolin and all that good stuff. And, she just did a show here in LA with an Americana duo from the UK. And I sang on that with her, called the Black Feathers, and they were awesome. And it was just nice. It was nice just to welcome people into the community and hope to help build their audience here or their relationship with venues. It's such a tiring and insular and isolating act to be an artist, truly, that the more we can access each other and support each other, I think the better off we'll be, not just musically, but mentally, really.
I can imagine, I've never been to LA, but I can imagine it's so huge that there's like small sections, so I can imagine that it can feel isolating when you're in like these certain sections, and it's so huge that you could literally go 15 minutes and like see people you've never met in your entire life doing similar things.
Oh yeah. It's unnerving almost when you run into a new pocket of people and they're talented and you don't know about them. And why don't I know about them? And holy shit, how many of us are there?
There's like such this joke almost in town of like somebody's aunt asks if you know their nephew that just moved to town, and you're like, no, like, do you know how many songwriters there are in Nashville? I don't know your nephew that just moved to last week.
Yeah. And then on the same token, you end up playing a gig with a musician whose bass player is somebody that you know from 12 years ago in a different city, and that's wild. And how did that even happen? The small world connections also are very real. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, all the time it happens. Anywhere you go on the road, you're gonna like somebody knows somebody. Yeah, it's wild. I've been doing this since like 2005, not just country, but just music in general. And it's always like, no matter where you go, there's somebody, even now, people from 2005 that saw me at some show somewhere,
It's wild. And that's a whole other community. I feel the touring community. Because not everybody spends a lot of time on the road, which is totally fine, because everybody's got their thing. Some people love being in the studio. Some people love being on the road, et cetera, et cetera. We all have to do a little bit of everything, but I feel there's something special about being out on the road and, I'm going to be in Massachusetts at the same time that this artist, who I know very lightly from this other event, but they live in Nashville, but we're going to be in Massachusetts on the same day. And maybe we can meet up and have a coffee, or I can catch part of their show and they can come catch part of mine. Like that to me is one of my favorite things about touring is seeing who else I can connect with that's also out on the rambling road and, in this sort of lifestyle.
I had them on the podcast, I guess last year at some point, and they're here in Nashville, and they joke that they see their friends more on tour than they do back home in Nashville. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's true sometimes. It's wild how that happens, but I enjoy that part of it very much. I love being on the road. That's a piece of this whole career that is big for me, because
I feel that next year too.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I have some tour dates going for this year, more things to be confirmed. I just finished up like a 2-week run, which was great and was my first time back out on the road since before the pandemic. So I have more things that'll be coming up for this year, but next year will be a little bit more heavily focused on that.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's really where I feel like I do the best work is in person with people, and I enjoy it. And so I'm looking forward to getting to do that. I have grown to really love the sanctuary space that is my home. Like this time that we've been forced to stay home, I have a great new respect and love for it.
You learn so many things during the lockdown. We all learned so many things during the lockdown that it's like, I actually do enjoy slowing down for a minute. I haven't done that in 10 years. It's wild.
Yeah, it scared me a little bit, actually. Yeah. Yeah, truly. And it scared me a little because, is it that I'm getting older and I love being on the road and that's like how my life is, blah, blah, blah. And so before I went out on this past, run in June, I was nervous. What happens if I get out there and I don't like it anymore? That will turn my entire world upside down. But I got out there and I loved it. And then I came home and I loved that too. So that's a perk. That's nice.
Yeah, I'm going out in August and I'm excited about it because it's been
you
almost
froze.
3 years. Yeah, I'm here.
It's broken up and your visual is frozen, but there you are. Okay. I think that's better. I heard you say you're going out in August and you're excited. I was seeing on your Twitter that you were looking at different spaces. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. We're in the process of locking in a few more dates. It's only going to be like a week long.
Okay.
But yeah. It's exciting.
A week-long tour is a lot to take on. Even are you touring solo? Are you touring with a band version? Of any version.
I'll be doing solo in August. I'll probably do band stuff once the album releases in October. So wait until then to throw more money out the window.
Oh yeah, it's a huge undertaking both to plan it and to pay for it. I've toured solo for 15 years primarily with occasional, changes in that, but it's just so much more financially doable. Right.
You actually come home with money in your pocket. So that's the main reason to do the solo stuff a lot.
Yeah. Just it makes things a lot easier, but it's not always the desired. I enjoy doing a solo show, which I'm glad for. And I really have honed my skills as a performer that way. So I feel grateful to be able to do either thing, to be able to show up by myself and hold down the fort and play the show and keep people engaged, as well as getting on stage with other musicians and being able to, light up the stage that way. They're kind of different art forms.
Right. Well, Begin Again is the perfect title for coming out of the pandemic, and comes out July 26th.
22nd, July 22nd.
Sorry. It comes out July 22nd.
But if you look for it on July 26th, it'll be there for you.
And July 22nd is a Friday. That makes sense. So check out maryscholz.com, SCHOLZ. And
that's right. We just redid the website and thank you. I can't wait to see you too. It'll be so nice to catch up in person. And thank you so much for having me on the podcast here. I really was looking forward to it, and I'm glad to be able to chat with you.
Yeah, I'm finally, we've been talking for a while about doing it, so I'm glad we finally got to. Well, thanks, Mary Scholz, for showing up on the podcast. Really appreciate it. It was great to see you at Americana Fest. Sorry it took so long to get this episode out, but happy to have you on. Make sure that you are following because we've got more episodes coming up. Afton Wolf will be up next on the podcast, and we got a few more in the pipeline for you, including Evermore Nest and Brittany Collins, and some more are coming. So rate and review that. Help us get more visibility. Make sure you're following us on all those social medias. I will be doing some giveaways for the month of October for my new record, so you definitely want to follow Will Payne Harrison, or at Will P. Harrison on Twitter, at Will Payne Harrison on Instagram. Make sure you follow India Ramey, Mary Scholz, Americana Station, do all that good stuff. And we'll see you next time on the podcast with Afton Wolf.